Hey, ladies and gents, Joe here, the man who has admittingly replayed Persona 5 Royal in basically a week. I mean, I got the tattoo for it, so I know. But I'm here to talk about UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura, not talking about my favorite video game of all time. We're here to talk fights, right? So, it was a card, and all that. But there really is this was like a really big and heavy news week, especially in these last couple days. So, there's a lot to dig into, so enough talk. Let's just get to the fights. Main event. We had the skidding Tai Tuivasa, who was given, in my opinion, a chance to kind of break this losing streak with a Katuna fight, because he's taking on Marcin Tybura. I always want to call him Marcin because I always think of like Marcin held. Marcin Tybura is kind of the guy you go, hey, warm up against this guy. When the UFC wants you to kind of break a streak, especially at heavyweight, where heavyweight is kind of an old man division. That's what makes like Tom Aspinall so exciting and Pavlovich so exciting, is these guys are relatively younger than what the norm is at heavyweight. So it's like we're gonna have these guys for a while. It's kind of similar to like what JDS and Cain Velasquez back in the day, because like those two guys came into the old man division and started smoking everybody, and it was like, oh, these guys are going to be around for a while. And we got a great trilogy out of it. So early on in this fight, though, Tai Tuivasa, he cuts Tybura open with a really good standing elbow and bleeding really hard. And he was kind of getting at it after it quick. Not looking too bad. But Tybura got the takedown, bleeding like a stuffed pig. But it just dominates on the ground, sinks in the rear naked choke after he gets the back, puts Tuivasa to sleep. This is 4 in a row for Tuivasa. I don't know. I doubt he'll get cut. But I mean, you gotta feel for the guy, because who doesn't love watching this guy fight? Like, this dude is a blast. Like, this card wasn't great. Let's be honest. It's another Apex card, but we were gonna watch it because of Tai Tuivasa. The dude's a blast and a half. You just love watching him fight. His post-fight celebration, getting the shoeies out, is awesome. Definitely a guy who, he's pretty popular in the mainstream. Everybody knows him as like the shoey guy, but with his like natural charisma, the shoey celebration definitely helps out a lot. And his fighting style, this is a guy who could be a megastar. But sadly, his lack of ground game and technical offense really let him down and kind of stopped him from breaking through to that like upper echelon we really want to see him at. But let's get to the rest of the card, because like I said, tons of news. So Brian Battle and Angulosa had a eye poke no contest that had both dudes really heated, with Brian Battle specifically being upset. Like your energy levels here. He's the one that committed the foul, no contest, incidental. He was like just really fired up, like, oh, yo, I was beating you up, blah, blah, blah. And it nearly kind of starts a brawl with him kind of goading loose after the fight. So kind of a crazy one. OSP got a split decision win over Kennedy Njoku in a pretty decent fight, actually. Christian Rodriguez, he had the same judges. I'm like 90% convinced these were the exact same judges that gave the fight to John Jones against Dominic Reyes. Because it had to, because he was gifted a decision against Isaac Dolgarian. Macy Chiasson got a rematch win over Penny Kianzad by rear naked choke in round 1, making her 2-0 against Kianzad because they were both tough finalists. And Macy got the win by rear naked choke as well in their fight, in their first fight. So G3, he got a rear naked choke win over Brian Barberina. A lot of submissions on this card, as you'll find out. Over Brian Barberina, blast and a half, but you take him down and he just ground game. It just isn't there. Kind of similar to the main event. Mike Davis, he got an arm triangle win over Nathan Levy. Chelsea Chandler got a decision win in just a really bloody fight against Josiane Nunes. Jafael Filo, he just smashed on Odie Osborne in Route 2 rear naked choke win. Odie Osborne, man, like that's a guy I watch fight sometimes and I go, this guy's like in fighting and losing to like good guys, and then he'll beat on guys like who are okay. It's like, okay, is this guy like a gatekeeper? Then he'll just lose out of nowhere, it seems like sometimes. Danny Silva got a split decision win. Actually, probably my favorite fight of this night, I thought, against Josh Kulibau. Really good fight. It was a lot of fun. Jacqueline Amorin got a super quick armbar win over Corey McKenna. Got taken down, goes for the triangle, transitions to the armbar. It looked like there was as I call it, a Brazilian tap where you tap out when the ref's not looking, tap out, and then when they loosen up, you keep going. A lot of those in history. I'm sure someone can make a giant compilation of those. Thiago Moises got a third-round low-kick TKO win, seemingly out of nowhere, against Mitch Ramirez. And when I say seemingly out of nowhere, like the fight was like mostly on the ground with like some boxing on the feet, mostly like a lot of clinching and grappling. Third round, he just comes out and low-kicks him once, and like Ramirez goes down. I was like, what? I legitimately don't remember another low-kick in the fight. But that's just me. And finally, Chad Anheleger got a decision win against Carolampos Gregorio. I apologize. From the South. My mouth barely can do Spanish, and I struggle with English. 110% apologies. But let's get to the first of 3 big news stories this week. Steve Erceg is getting the title shot. Leapfrogging, in my opinion, Muhammad Mokaev to get a title shot against Alexandre Pantoja. And honestly, I dig this decision a lot. No one really knows who Steve Erceg is, but he's good. He's really good. He's streaking too right now, so it's good. Muhammad Mokaev. Okay, so it's going to be honest. This dude, unless your name is like Brandon Royval, because Manel Cape, I think, needs one more win. Mokaev, he probably needs like one more win, but Pantoja's starting to clean out the division, so it's kind of rough. Even though he's like one title defense in, he's just kind of fought a lot of the guys in this division, the kind of thing. Like Manel Cape isn't a guy I'm interested in. But Mokaev is like a guy who technically I think has the longest winning streak in the division right now, besides Pantoja maybe. And he is so boring that it's kind of detrimental to his career. This is my opinion. I think he makes Belal Muhammad look like prime Robbie Lawler. I'm just not even joking. So I think putting him as the main event for a card that desperately needs a really good fight at the main event, because UFC, they failed at getting anything cool for UFC 300, so they had to steal the UFC 301 main event. And by the way, the UFC 300 card is really good. I mean the main event. Like, they had to steal that main event so they could have a main event. And now here they are. Pantoja coming in on short notice, essentially. Giving it to Steve Erceg, essentially, on short notice. But this is good. I mean, giving that to Mokaev would be pretty bad. Like, a guy that, like, isn't in good fights. And it's like you're going to Rio. Oh, it's just a nightmare, you know. I think they made the right call here. I mean, I personally would rather have Steve Erceg in there than... because here's the thing, too. Steve Erceg is arguably the most deserving non-Brandon in the division. Is how I'll put it, you know? So I actually super dig this call. I personally would have liked Royval in there for the trilogy, even though it's like... Flyweight needs a lot of like non-rematches right now because that's all their main event scene's been known for a while. It's just kind of how it is. So, but in other UFC 301 news, the King of Rio is back. Jose Aldo Jr. comes back from retirement from like 2 years off. I think it was like 2022, I think, when he fought Merab last. And he's taking on Jonathan Martinez in a low-kick-tastic fight. This fight's wild, really cool. Jonathan Martinez is, he's young and he's streaking right now. That said, I'm still picking Aldo here. It's been 2 years since his last fight, and you have to remember, I think he's the only guy on this current streak Merab's on to just not get smoked and dominated. Like, I mean, the Marias fight, Merab was getting dominated. It was just a huge comeback, but Merab really struggled against Aldo. He had to just, like, holly home him. It was awful. This is a rough one. Aldo, though, I will say this, big little plus for him in this matchup. He is a master. When he dropped to bantamweight, like at featherweight, I thought people were doing well when they kicked with him, and at featherweight, good luck kicking at him because he's just going to counter you off of you trying to kick him, you know. So, really pumped for this fight. I know because Aldo was really close to a title shot. I think he should have got the title shot against Aljo, but. Hey, I'm super pumped here. And finally, I really want to devote some time, because this is like the really important news, I think, of the week. This other news is cool and interesting stuff, but this one is like, on a human level, is like really genuinely great. I have to devote time to Mark Coleman's week. So for those of you that don't know Mark Coleman, he's a retired UFC champion at heavyweight. fought in Pride. He's known a lot in Pride for when he wins like a Grand Prix. I think he beats Igor Vovchanchkin with knees to the head. Pride rules. And he's pumped. He's freaking out. And then like he tries like jumping on like the turnbuckle and the ropes and like just like falls. He's probably known for like that, like a little clip. But really, I always think of him as the godfather of ground and pound, because he's like the first guy to like really like make this wrestler and ground and pound is the real way to fight in MMA, and just a huge legend of the sport. But this week he had a tragedy. I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's a tragedy. That could have been worse, but I'll get into it. So this week his dog alerted him to a fire that was in his house, and when the fire was all said and done, you can see the pictures. His house is completely leveled, destroyed. His dog Hammer, which is a sick name for his dog, especially because he was known as Mark the Hammer Coleman. His dog Hammer woke him up to the fire, let him know what was going on, basically. And he was able to go in and save his parents from the blaze. And then he went back in to save his dog Hammer. Sadly, he passed out from smoke inhalation. And he was rescued, but his dog passed away. And he was unresponsive, but alive in the hospital. But now he's up and around. Been like that for, I think, a day or so, maybe 2 days. But it was scary. It was scary for a hot minute. I was really worried that, like, this is what happens. And thinking about that story, for me, and thinking about his dog really hits home for me, because I'll admit it had me tearing up pretty hard. So from the bottom of my heart, if this gets out to, if Mark Coleman sees this in some way or another, thank you. You're a true hero, and I am beyond words and like so sorry for your loss, because me and my brother own a dog, right? And he's turning 9 in September this year. And I'm always fearful of time running out with him, especially because I don't live with him. So when I see him, I always try to make it the biggest deal on the planet. But you can never mentally prepare for something like this. So hearing that story just really spoke to me. Mark Coleman, once again, if you're watch this somehow, absolute legend, and I hope you make a full recovery. That's it for me, though. I need to somehow stop coughing. But that's it for me. Of course, we're kind of in like a little run of like a lot of UFC fight nights and stuff. So, of course, I'll be here. But be sure to check out for more content coming, because on the main channel, Carl has a great video I just got done watching. I watched it early on Patreon, because that's what you can do if you become a Patreon member. You get to watch our videos early. And watch them on Patreon. And also as a bonus, joining Patreon, you get to request a retro review of whatever you like. I'll review it as long as I get my hands on it. Speaking of, I did finish one. Carl's working on it. It's going to be great. I'm super pumped for this one, so be on the lookout for that as well. I'm Joe with the INC, and thank you so much for watching.